Hello there, friends. Before we jump into it, if you like what we do here on cPDH.guide, the YouTube, and you want to support us in a free way, because, you know, that's what friends do, hit that like, hit that subscribe, even share the damn thing. All right, on to the show. Hello, friends. So, I've been waiting for this for a while. And from what I understand, David's been waiting for this for a while. It just never really happened.
Yeah.
And then it happened. So if you don't know, the reason why you're looking at this beautiful SOB right here on screen is because he is the winner of Common Cause 3, right? Common Cause 3.
Yes, Common Cause 3.
With Lorehold Apprentice. Yes, I was going to say nostalgic, but that's probably actually true at this point in time. Strixhaven was a couple of years ago, but it's the 2-mana Apprentice cycle. Witherbloom Apprentice is probably the one I can think of offhand. I can't think of any of the other apprentices, you know, because they're that good or not. I don't know. That's heresy. I know. No one expected a Lorehold Apprentice. I know people have been working on it, at least casually, for the last couple of years. So we can get into that a little bit later. Once again, if you don't know who this is, some people say Ankylosaur, some people say Ankylosaur. I don't even know if the paleontologists know exactly how to say it.
Yeah.
So, affectionately known as David. He has his own channel on YouTube under the dinosaur's name. We're obviously going to link that in the description here. I told him before this, so this would be the second time that he heard that, or he's hearing this. One of the best producers of scripted content for the format on the internet. It's absolutely delightful. Much to his surprise. Absolutely positive or popular. I am not surprised by that, because after the first couple of videos looking at, I think your first ones were like staples and things of that nature, kind of, as you said earlier, kind of testing the waters in your expertise and seeing what would stick. Done a lot of deck techs, done a lot of post-tournament review stuff, kind of looking at not necessarily specifically the winning or top 4 or what have you, with there was some focus there, but like also looking at some of the interesting things from those tournaments, because I also said that you were in that same blurb that I was talking about. You also said that you're kind of a technician when it comes to mechanics and honing a deck build, in brewing. So that would be the reason why I feel I'm sitting here talking and projecting all this stuff onto him, and he's shaking his head. So I must be getting something right. So my friend David, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. So as part and parcel to the things that we do, tell me a little bit about your Magic story.
Yeah, absolutely. So I started playing Magic as a 5th grader back in 4th edition. I've been at it for a while. So I played pretty casually up through high school. I do like pre-releases every now and then. Gen Con used to be in Milwaukee, which is just a couple hours from me. So middle school, high school, I'd go to Gen Con, maybe enter they called it Type 2 at the time, but it's standard tournaments.
Geez, you're showing your age a little bit. Yeah,
I know. Yeah. I played a peasant tournament, which was like one of my first forays into like the common formats when I was in high school. And I think my last set was Apocalypse, and I took a long break from college, came back for the Zendikar pre-release, the original Zendikar pre-release. I was getting ready to go to grad school and like preparing to take the GRE and everything, and my friends showed up to the coffee house where we all hung out with their old like kitchen table Magic decks, and we're like, hey, what if we did this? And I was like, oh god, not right now. I have so much work to do. But yeah, immediately got sucked back in.
It's sucking me in. Yeah.
Yeah. So
righteous.
Yeah. So original Zendikar, I came back, and I've been playing fairly consistently ever since. Yeah.
So what? Why Pauper Commander? Because
Yeah.
admittedly, from our when I say our, the online community's perspective, you seemingly came out of nowhere. So not knowing if your genesis was around the time when we first started interacting, or if you'd been playing for a while and then just discovered us, like how did that happen?
Yeah. So my first real love was 60 card Pauper.
Mm.
I've realized that I've found I'm really into the small, like, community-driven formats. Pauper, like, as far as 60 card formats go, really exemplifies that. I play some pre-modern as well, which is a ton of fun. All the cards from when I was growing up. But, I don't know. The people who get into Pauper tend to, like, really get into it, and I love that. I love the passion of that. And then I did play a little bit of Commander after I was playing Pauper for a while, but again, one fateful day, I had some friends who showed up at the LGS with some Pauper EDH decks, which just it seemed like it came out of nowhere. I don't know if they were like discussing this at some point, but I remember there was a Balmore there was a Rilsa Rail, someone had Witherbloom Apprentice. Just like I don't know, it was a good mix of decks and strategies that were like not necessarily things you'll see at the competitive level, but
Mm.
like a high powered casual for sure.
Mm-hmm.
And, I don't know, I watched them play and I was like, "Man, I really like Commander. I love Pauper. Why did this never occur to me before?" And, I built a deck so I could play with them. My first deck was, Ramirez DiPietro Pillager, the pirate that drains you and, like, makes treasures when it comes into
Yeah.
play. And I built that kind of as a blue-black Peregrine Drake combo deck, sort of like Possessed Gob, but I didn't know Possessed Gob existed at the
Mm.
time because I, I hadn't really delved into what the format had to offer, but yeah, so I started playing a little bit with them, and then I follow RIW Hobbies on various social media platforms, which is this game store outside of Detroit, and they're kind of known for um, their biannual or so Pauper 1K tournaments.
Mm-hmm.
And I saw they posted about a Pauper EDH 1K, and I was like, "That's it. I got to do that." Like again, tiny community run format.
Yep.
This format that I've recently fallen in love with and have been playing a lot and brewing a little bit. So that was really it. Is the RIW tournament last year?
And that was
That was
that was our introduction, I believe, to Aaron a Street Urchin.
it was yeah. I tested
You
a
bastard.
lot for that tournament. Yeah. I tested a lot for that tournament, and I had to teach myself the format because that's just
Mm.
how I do things. I don't if I'm gonna travel like Detroit is like 4.5 hours from me. If I'm gonna travel and get the hotel room and everything, like I
Might
want to
as
be
well.
prepared. I want to know what I'm getting myself into. I want to make sure that I have a deck that can take on I used the guide. I used other resources to find the top decks in the format, and I tested against them extensively and found that this random, I came across Street Urchin first. That was the first card that as I was going through some bulk, I was like, well, I really love like Goblin Bombardment. I love things like that.
Mm-hmm.
What can I pair this with? And I was like, Death Touch Commander. Wait a second. And that it just clicked. And A plus B. And yeah, I really love that deck. And I played so many solitaire games with it before the tournament, just making sure that I knew how to face everything in the format.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like I keep telling people that was like the highlight of my Magic year last year was RIW. I loved that tournament so much, and meeting the community because I was just doing this in the dark. I didn't know that there were proper EDH discords or that there was a community of folks like yourself out
Mm-hmm.
there. I just got into it on my own basically, and I met all of you fine folks. That was really lovely.
Yeah, and for me, I had never. I don't know. I'm kind of a boisterous kind of person, so like having people come up to me and be like, hey, I saw you do this crazy thing. not to say that I'm not used to that, but like we were standing in a parking lot of an old Asian food place, and David's telling me his playtesting and how he like set up the different decks, and he would play each one of them in solitaire, and I'm like, one of us is crazy.
Yeah. I've talked about my testing a little bit elsewhere, but yeah, I open up 4 tabs of Moxfield, and I'll have like the deck that I'm trying to run through the gauntlet, and then I'll pick some of the best decks of the format. It'll be like a Malcolm Kedis. I've played against your Sir Conrad deck a bunch because lots of people. Well, Sir Conrad is having kind of a moment at the time of recording, and so I've played against that to test to make sure that if somebody's playing a bunch of edicts and gonna try and drain me with Sir Conrad, I want to make sure that my deck is ready for it. Do that, play against Gretchen, and yeah, I run whole pods by myself, and that's how I learned the format and learned how to play a variety of decks, and yeah.
So that's the thing. Like people talk about goldfishing all the time, and all this is just goldfishing like 4D, right? That's all this is. So I at first glance, for the folks out there in the internet, like it might be like, okay, well, logistically, how do you do this? Do you like broadcast it onto a spell table so you can see the battlefield as it looks, or do you just flip through the tabs, like, because you're good enough to just
I just flip through the tabs. That helps me a little bit too, because obviously when you're playing solitaire, you can see everybody's hand, and I'm trying to pretend that like I don't know, the Gretchen players holding up a counter spell, for instance. Like I just try to make the plays as best I would with the information that I have, and moving between the tabs sort of helps with that. Like I'm not looking at everybody's hand all the time, but yeah, I don't know. Goldfishing for me, I've always run into the problem of like I'm playing towards an ideal situation rather than a situation that's in the game. Like I'll have a removal spell, and I'll be like, all right, end step, I'll remove your thing that I'll pretend is there. And it's like, well, yeah, obviously that would be awesome if if I killed a Malcolm right here. But in an actual game, there'll be so many different threats and so many, all the intricacies of playing a real game. And you get to emulate that a little bit when you're playing solitaire on Moxfield. So I know it's not for everyone. I know it sounds crazy, but especially if you're getting into the format, I 100% recommend it, just because you're going to learn all the decks. You're going to learn all the decks and how to play them and how to play against them.
Absolutely. And the thing that I was going to ask, because so like comparatively, because I goldfish a lot, especially when I'm at work and I'm in a meeting that I'm not particularly hosting, but I'm just participating in. I'll goldfish, and I'm in the mid-range zone right now. So my thought process is between turns 1 through 4, I want to have removal available, and then maybe at another key point like turn 5, 6, or 7, have something available, blah blah blah. And in goldfishing, I'll readily expend those removal spells as I am progressing through those key turns. Do you find that in the more live or robust goldfishing that like if I created this paradigm like this, do you find like whatever paradigm that you have created for yourself, do you find that playing out as like you're doing this more intensive goldfishing?
Yeah. So I it's not going to be 100% objective. It's not, I am testing a deck, and I would like that deck to do well. And I'm sure there's some kind of hidden bias in there that's like, as I'm making decisions for each player, you can't get away from that. The way I try and get away from that is I will, if, for instance, turn 1, turn 2, somebody has a 1-drop, somebody's going to get attacked with that 1-drop. I'll try to make it attack the
judicious as possible. Yeah.
I just like take my own life total down to see how that goes. But as far as the testing, it plays out like pretty similar to a regular pot of cPDH. You know, there's certainly, you know, I'm the only one playing it, so it's my threat assessment is my threat assessment. It's not going off of, you know, your threat assessment and player C's threat assessment, player D. Like, I'm the one making all the decisions, so that can be skewed. It's not scientific, is what I'm saying.
And you're playing Gretchen the way that you would play Gretchen versus the way Bobby would play Gretchen versus the way Puzzle. So there's
and you know, it's one of those things that, having watched, like, for instance, Bobby has picked up Arena Street Urchin sometimes, and watching him play that is a very different experience from, like, the way I play that deck and the way, you know, Ghillie Suit, for instance, might have played that deck. The you know, who won the Nick Please event. But yeah, so again, like, my threat assessment, my decision making, it's not going to be exactly the way a real game would play out, but it's a lot closer than it is with just straight up gold fishing by yourself, where you don't have an opponent and you're just kind of drawing your cards and seeing how that works.
The decision trees don't necessarily branch out way too far. I mean, there's still a cone there, but, you know, between what you and someone else would do, but still, like, the minute difference between, because theoretically a different person in your same circumstance would draw the same way, you know, so, like, the variation wouldn't be so great, you know. Now, if you were playing combo, whether or not to combo early or combo late, you know, those are some hefty decisions that would, you know, effectively change things. So, no, this part is fascinating because, and I'm really glad that we got to kind of, like, hone in on it a little bit, because you're one of a few people, maybe even a population of one, who do this thing this way.
I'm one other person. There's at least two of us.
Yeah, I know. I'm grinning. I find this absolutely fascinating because, you know, from a social standpoint, or from a culture perspective, precisely, seeing you interact with this thing in this very particular way, but also, like, having played against you a number of times, you're no scrub, you know. So
I mean, I'm a grinder at heart, and when I'm preparing for a tournament, I really tend to throw myself into it, and that's true with cPDH. That's true with 60 card Pauper. I took sort of a break from Pauper EDH to focus on 60 card because there was a big tournament coming up at MagicCon Chicago. So, you know, I took a couple months and just, you know, I was playing,
which I saw you at briefly. Several times, briefly.
Yes, I really wish I had budgeted my MagicCon time a little bit better to hang out with you more, and Bobby and Brad. Like, I saw so many people that I've wanted to interact with more in person, and then it was just like, bye, sorry, I got it. Next round is starting, and I got to go play some Pauper.
Grinder life set, man. It's just the way it goes. Yeah.
But I really threw myself into that for a while. I threw myself into RIW, and
how long? What's your typical ramp up time for grinding for practice for a tournament?
It's on the month scale, like a couple. Yeah, like when I get into it, and like whenever I bought the badge for MagicCon, it was like, okay, I'm doing that. I bought my entry into this. The Pauper Cup, I'm gonna do it. Let's get on Moto and just start playing.
Grind it up.
Just start going. So yeah, it's a little bit all consuming sometimes.
Well, I mean,
it's fun for me. It's fun. I love tournament prep.
Well, it's something that we don't really point to, because these interviews are these one-shot, you know, glimpses into the life of a player, but we really don't do any you know, like, cross-examination of. I think everyone that I've interviewed thus far, and probably everybody in the future, would agree that a certain amount of ramp up practice, grinding, would be necessary. It provides comfort, as you alluded to, of your list, and you more easily can identify its weak spots, its blind spots. You could also make adjustments off of that, prepare it, provided it's not too late in the card. The card quality is available to you in those colors and at their rarity. And then also, like, from your perspective, I think most people learn opposing lists or opposing strats via playing, like actual play in pods, LFGs, that kind of stuff, which you do.
Yep.
But you just go on the extra step on top of that, and because in a pod where the game is live and the decisions are happening now and all of that stuff, there's no real opportunity to slow the pace down and truly examine the flow. Being the singular entity in that pod, you'll know that you started at this point and then have traversed through these decision points, for all the decks, and kind of know you can see things either coming together or falling apart from that one unique perspective as you're taking your time, which is probably the true benefit of that style of prep versus, like, getting in an LFG over at Sanctuary or Connoisseurs, what have you, and just grinding out 5 games. Like, some of that's just going to be a blur. I know for myself, it's especially when it gets into somewhat of a slog fest, like, it's all left on the field. Like, I barely remember the contents of a game, a day later. So
So when I do solitaire pods, sometimes I'll take notes too, especially when I get to those, like, big turning points. Like, I'll really take my time and be like, oh, this is a really interesting spot that I'm in. I could do X and that'll lead to Y, or I could do this other line, and I'll really, like, break it down and think about it, and look at both what I'm doing, what the other seats could potentially be doing. Like, if I try and kill this threat, like, what are the chances that I'll get backup from one of the other decks, for instance? That's the thing that I'll think through. And, like,
all I can think of is your note taking gives you a level of confidence. See, now this is all coming together for me. So I'm recalling a match that David and I played in a Common Cause tournament. I can't remember if it's 1 or 2. I was playing Carter at the time. We were in a 3-pod, and he had a fantastic hand, and you could tell by the tonation of his voice that he knew he had a fantastic hand, and he was just, and I was frustrated, like, man, it's just not coming together for me. And David's like, yeah, sometimes it just happens that way. and so now the pieces for me months later coming together, you had practice, you had notes, you knew unequivocally that what you had in your hand was going to propel you into a position that was somewhat unstoppable, and that's all making sense to me now. Of the confidence of that.
I don't know. Like I said, with Aranis, I tested for an awfully long time. I made sure I knew that deck inside and out. Also, it's a slower deck. It takes a while to turn the corner and win the game once it has control. So I wanted to make sure that I'm making actions, like, as quickly as I can, getting through my turn, making sure that I know which creatures are threats and which creatures I can leave alive. Like pingers, for instance. Throughout most of the testing that I would do, I learned that if you're playing against a pinger deck, sometimes it's okay to leave those around, because Aranis takes a while to close, and that's just going to be dealing damage to everybody that you don't have to account
Putting in work. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. It's doing the work for you. So that's, just one random insight that I learned from all the testing is, like, some things you've got to get rid of, and some things are actually beneficial if they're on your opponent's side, and you can leave them around. So
the enemy of my enemy is my friend.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And I think that is that is a very good point to bring up, because I feel like we're in the full swing of Pinger, not mania. Pinger mania was probably about 6 months ago. We're in the full swing of like Pinger expression. So all the decks who have leaned into that strategy have perfected that to some degree. And it's such an interesting strategy that now, in the same way that the scam for Conrad has been kind of honed a little bit. Now people are trying to carbon copy that into other lists. The Pinger strategy is one of those too. So we're in the full swing of that expression. So recognizing that, yeah, you're going to take hits, but which one is the hit that kills me? You know,
exactly.
Kind of figuring out that. Sweet. So this is probably a good time to somewhat pivot. So we talked about prep, the depth, the absolute. I gotta up my game, man. The absolute depth of. Maybe this is an opportunity to have some very specific playtest pods that are dedicated to doing something. You feel me? I think you feel me on this. Yeah. Anyway,
I don't know if anybody would be interested in watching a video of me like going through one of my test pods and kind of talking through the decisions that I make. I've been thinking about putting something like that on my channel. I have no idea if anyone would watch it. It would be kind of long compared to the rest of my content, but
I don't know. I think
like, comment, and subscribe.
Right. I think that's the thing. I think you, given the person that I know that you are, I think that you think now that it would be long, but once you kind of start putting that storyboard together, I think you'll realize that you could probably condense it here and expound here and probably make it, an enjoyable thing. I'll be watching it.
Okay. That's good to know. I'll get at least one. Yeah.
Sweet. Okay, so why Lorehold Apprentice? Why?
Yeah. Well, you sort of said it yourself. Like, pingers are also having a moment, and I think they're in a good place right now. Like, if you're doing a mid-range or control sort of plan, being able to damage each opponent all at once, it feels way better than going to combat and having to
trade resources.
Like I mentioned, that was one of the problems with Aranis, is as much as I love that deck, you need to go to combat to close out the game, which is slow, and it'll usually like, only kill one person at a time. It gives the combo decks time to like, end step, bounce, street urchin, combo off. It takes a while to close. But the way that I built Lorehold Apprentice, you're able to just kind of play Drago for most of the game and hold up all of your mana to interact with whatever needs interacting with. But then on somebody's end step, you just like cantrip, deal 3 to 4 to everybody. Because you've got a bunch of pingers. You could also make spirit tokens to turn into pingers with Lorehold. And then just untap land pass and like keep doing that. It's and the damage really adds up. Like if you hit a big Rousing of Souls, which is this weird card that draws everyone a card,
Parlay.
Like you it parlays, and if you hit non-lands off the top of people's decks, you can make spirit tokens. So you can make up to 4 spirits for 3 mana, and cantrip yourself, which is an insane card if it works out. I did a Rousing for Souls for 1 in the tournament. That felt real bad. But but if you get a big Rousing of Souls, you get a triplicate spirits or whatever, and some of the untapper spells that are in the deck, you can dish out a ton of damage all at once to the table and like close the game surprisingly quickly. So
how many iterations did you start at Control?
I've been really high on pinger decks lately. I've been building a bunch of like I have a 4 or 5 color pinger list I've been working on, just kind of on the side,
like a composite golem, or what's that Sphinx?
Yeah. Composite golem, like the Mardu pingers with a bunch of extort guys, and then but splashing blue for Ophidian Eye and Tandem Lookout, so you can also like
curiosity control. Yep,
exactly, yeah. But I don't know. So I kind of started there. I started with like, let's do that. Bobby also had a list that he had shared with me that was doing a similar thing, and really, really loved that. And The strategy didn't shift too much, but like the individual card choices, like I knew I wanted to play pingers in addition to spirits, and this finalist it's funny, it has more humans in it than it has spirits. Like for being a spirit commander, the actual red pinger creatures just so good, like Kestic Flame Breather, Thermo Alchemist, all the classics,
Mm-hmm.
just so good. But you do want some spirits, and there are some spirits that aren't too bad.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's not a very well supported tribe in the format, but there's some like Kami of False Hope, the fog creature, pretty solid. What else is there? There's a few that like the Kami of Ancient Law, which you can sacrifice to destroy an enchantment, surprisingly relevant against Wilson Far Travelers. I played against Hive 3 times during the tournament. If I'd ever drawn one of those things, like that would have been very good. Gretchen is still floating about. So there are some spirits that aren't bad. And they're even better when you can tap to deal a damage to each opponent.
Yeah.
So yeah, like just having access to so many pingers and just, in test games, I would have like 5 or 6 random creatures in play and just like end step, I'll cast a Defiance Strike, draw a card, tap, deal 6 to everybody, cast an untapper spell, untap them all, deal 6 more. Like it was just, when it pops off, it really pops off and it feels pretty good. So it's funny. I was talking after the event a bit, and somebody likened the deck to Boris Malcolm Kedis, and because that's also just kind of playing a pinger. It's playing a pinger plan for the most part. It does have the combo. That's usually what you think of when you think of Malcolm Kedis, is the combo. But so many games you just ping people out because you're able to, anticipate into deep analysis, into, with all of the treasure that you've generated, you can just deal a ton of damage with the pingers. And I was like, I hadn't thought of it like that before, but like, yeah, all right, it is kind of that. And I don't know. I think that pingers are where I want to be. It's my new love. I used to be really high on the Peregrine Drake decks and kept building like, I kept building janky like 3 color flicker piles. I had Lady Evangela as like an Esper commander. I had Lagrella. I built Warden, the Jeskai Warden of the Eye or whatever it is.
Yeah.
I built like every combination you could think of to try and make this flicker deck work. And now I've shifted to pingers. I think pingers are where it's at in almost May of 2024.
No, I mean, because that's the thing. So I have been recently experimenting with Witherbloom as an alternative win con for, and it's not even a win con, it's more of a alternative point of pressure for a mid-range deck that relies, the whole point of it is in the absence of Witherbloom, the deck can do the thing by itself. Slimes, right? So sure. I've been noticing that just with Witherbloom in play and just playing Magic, I'm doing 10 damage to the table just with this one pinger creature. So like being able to like amplify that, because I mean it's Golgari, so not many pingers in that unless you count the extort creatures.
Yeah.
So really leaning in, and I think that it's as evidenced by the myriad triggers, whether it's non-creature, artifact entering, instant or sorcery. Like I think it's a world where R&D is like interested in exploring and bringing more of those to bear as well. So I don't think we're getting less in the future.
Yeah.
So it's pretty safe to say that, and even then, like if you're in red, like, oh my God, there's what, like 6, 8 total?
There's so many. Yeah. Like Firebrand casting, you got Unruly Catapult just came out, Erebor Flamesmith. There's a bunch. So,
some are better than others, for sure.
Some are better than others, but yeah. And I feel that too with the spirits. Like we have Duskmourn or whatever, the horror set coming up towards the end of the year. Maybe some spirits in there. That would be awesome.
Stonks.
Upgrade a little bit. Yeah. So
maybe my Quintorius build, because I have delved into spirits of Boros spirits before with Quintorius. Completely different mindset on what you're trying to do there. So yeah, I feel you on the lack of good spirits.
Yeah, it is a little bit. I was kind of scraping the barrel a little bit with them, but it's okay. They're all pingers. That's the thing, is they're not the best pingers in your deck, but when you're just drawing cards, playing lands, and shooting your opponents, it doesn't have to be that good of a creature. It's still dealing, a total of 3 damage per turn cycle, and that's where I wanted to be. Yeah.
Right on. So now that you've prepped this deck, you've played it a million times in the way that you do, tournament day shows up, and like, what were your expectations? Like, a more appropriate way, did you do any intel work? How did you scout we've talked about your preparedness, like how did you scout for this particular, do you look at the people and then presume that based on who the personalities are, they're probably going to be playing XYZ? What does that process look like for you?
Yeah, there's a little bit of that. And I should note, after I've gone on about how much I grind and prepare for tournaments, round 1 was the very first actual game of Magic I played with Lorehold Apprentice. I looked up on the guide too, and there are 4 games logged for Lorehold Apprentice. They're all me, and they're all from this tournament. That's it. Like, nobody has really played this deck, and that includes me. So I did a bunch of prep on my own. I felt like the deck was in a place that I had been talking it up a little bit in various places, and was like, I think I'm onto something. And when I do that, I kind of like, putting my money where my mouth is. And like, I did that with Satyr Enchanter too a while back. I was like, I think this deck is really good, guys. And so I ran it in a tournament. I was like, I believe in this deck, and I want to show it off, and hopefully it'll do something, and we'll find out.
Yeah.
But
and you top 4. You were in the top 4 of that tournament too.
I did. Yeah, I made the finals with that. Yeah. But to your question, I did look at the bracket and see the people that were in there, and I don't think I really changed the deck at all. Yeah, I didn't like metagame that hard. I could go through and be like, well, Ryan's here. Ryan plays a variety of things, but he was probably going to be on Third Path Iconoclast. Ryan didn't actually be able to make it this time, but I knew you were probably going to play Conrad because you've been playing Conrad recently. Hive was there, and I know Hive is really loving the Wilson Far Traveler. So, yeah, I don't know. Like, I've been a part of the community for long enough that I could kind of identify decks that people would be playing. But no, I didn't go and like change the deck and be like, oh, I need to make sure that I have such and such card to take out such and such person. Yeah.
Probably more from the perspective of looking at individually, like Ryan being there, Bobby being there, Gator being there, Chris being there. Chris is Gator. Chris Wilmer game if he's playing in the tournament, blah, blah, blah. Right. So looking at individually the people, but then like looking at the aggregate and going, oh, that's a heavy combo field, or that's a heavy mid-range field. This is kind of some of the things that I try to do, is like, especially if I'm playing a specific. Ironically, I wasn't wanting to play Conrad this tournament. I was wanting to play the Witherbloom list. I just couldn't get any practice in with it because right now college is happening and everybody's doing finals and all of that stuff. So I didn't get the number of reps that I wanted, even though I've probably goldfished the thing a million times. So I just didn't feel confident playing, because typically in practice for online events, you will be in servers where you'll see some of the same people who are playing, who are likely also practicing with their lists, so you can kind of get an understanding of what your deck is going to do with specific matchups leading up to the event, which is always kind of a nice thing. I didn't have the cojones to do what you did and just bring it cold, which I should have.
Yeah.
I should have just brought it.
Yeah. So oftentimes I will sort of get a feeling for the meta and be like, okay, I want to attack from this angle, or I want to, this would be a great time to go back to Gretchen, or this would be a good time to play Satyr and Chatter again. This tournament, I really just wanted to play Lorehold. Like I had been practicing it. I felt really good about it, and I wanted to kind of give it its debut and like show it off a little bit. So,
yeah. Well, you did a good job.
I did. I did it. Yeah.
So just briefly talking about the tournament, was there any particular like highlights? Like were you surprised by this deck or this player, or was there a time where you were like really puckered and like, I don't know if I'm going to make it, through this, any of those type things?
Yeah, the first 2 rounds were pretty rough. Like my first round, I mulled the 5 and didn't really draw much in the way of pingers. I had a bunch of interaction, and I played against 2 Abdel decks. Franklin and Gator were both on different builds of Abdel, and then Tony was playing their Ball Shadow Thieves deck, and so it was like combo and Gator on Abdel Black, and I had interaction. I could like Benevolent Blessing something to stop a combo. I could stave off something, but like I wasn't doing anything on my own. Like I just couldn't draw my way out of it. So that was a rough first round. Round 2, I kept an embarrassingly. You can see this one. This one is, if the Twitch bot is still up, you can see my embarrassing keep of Secluded Step, Plains, and then what I felt was the nuts. Like I had Rousing of Souls, I had a Basilica Guard, I had a Thermo Alchemist, I had like stuff. I needed 1 land, particularly a red source.
And it's gas.
I didn't draw a land for like 5 or 6 turns. It was just miserable. I was, my turns were literally draw. I guess I'll move the cleanup, draw some great cards. And but that round went to time, and I got a 1 point out of it. I got a draw, which was honestly the best I could have hoped for. Like there was no way I was going to be able to like claw my way back into that. But
yeah. So for those that don't know, so typically the normal, and I'm using quotes here, the normal time is 90 minutes. Some tournaments will experiment and try 100. Other tournaments, like this one in particular, tried 80-minute rounds, which because were you in 2 of the draw matches or just 1?
Just 1.
So do you think that if you had an extra 10 minutes that it would have played itself out?
I think somebody was going to win round 2 if there were 10 more minutes. Yeah. It would have been close to the end, and maybe it would have gone to turns because there are also extra turns in this tournament. But I don't think if there were 10 more minutes, I would have gotten my point for the draw.
It's an interesting, because I've yet to talk to Chris one more game about that experience. I know we had 3 draws in the matches, and just somewhat curious whether or not, the extra 10 minutes would have changed the outcome of that. So
I don't know. It's always hard to say, the hypothetical, but in that round in particular, I think somebody would have pulled it out. So first 2 rounds kind of embarrassing, but because it was such a small tournament, round 3 was still a win in it. I had excellent tiebreakers because I got the pair up round 2, so I was playing against everybody that won their pod, and then there was me who's just like, hi, I guess I'll keep a 2-lander and not do anything. So but game 3, the deck did its thing. It made a bunch of pingers and spirits, and I got to do one of my favorite things in the format, which is interfere with somebody else's combat. I don't know why I love that so much, but towards the end of the game,
Mhm.
Hive was at 7 life, and Aaron, who is playing Gut Inspiring Leader, sends a 7 power spirit with protection from green, thanks to like an angelic intervention or something.
Mm.
Sends a skeleton at Hive who does have 3 white blockers, so could like block their way out of this lethal attack. And I was like, Niveus Wisp, tap one of your blockers. Volcanic Spike, kill your other blocker. Now you've got 1 creature for this menacing skeleton. And I was able to knock Hive out with Aaron's creature, which I don't know. I get some sort of like silly pleasure out of doing
I mean,
that.
on the bingo card, that's pretty good, right?
Yeah. I don't know. There's something about being, being the third player who's just kind of sitting by and watching and being like, actually, I can spin this to my favor anyways.
It's the
Like
same
it
reason
doesn't
why people play Provoke.
exactly. Yeah. That I love that card. That's like one of my pet cards in the format. Um, it's so good. Just and it's so good against the skeletons out of Gut in particular.
Mm.
Like the way something that has to block interacts with Menace, you can suck an extra creature into the block and force them to block with 2 creatures and kill them both with 1 skeleton. It's not, that is definitely on my bingo card to do in this format at some point. Is yeah.
Well, if I don't play Gut, then it'll never happen to me. So
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. But
so at what point the final round, which I think was streamed on Trying Casually.
Yes.
Trying Casually, and who else had coverage for this? It was it Chris's One More Game, or was it I can't recall. There was 2 places that were streaming it, but Trying Casually had the finals.
Yes.
Unsure whether or not that's going to make its way over to YouTube off of Twitch, but at what point did you like know that you had it? Did you like feel like you had it, or were you just all the way uncertain until it resolved?
That was a really good game. I'm not sure how much of it you were able to see if you watched any of it at all, but it was a nail biter. It came right down to the end and like just really good Magic being played. Um, I wish I could point to some play that I made that was like, this is what put me over the top. But I think I sort of benefited from the other players focusing on each other a lot. And then as the pinger deck, I can kind of do cleanup. I'm definitely not trying to do 30 damage to each player. That's not likely to happen. Like I have a bunch of spirits. I can tap them for a lot of damage, but I'm probably not going to deal 30 to everybody. But as people were focusing on each other, I was able to, keep my life total high enough. I had a Syndic of Tithes from pretty early on, so I was extorting, gaining 3 life per ping, and I was kind of able to just ride things out. Um, there's a few different things that happened. Like the biggest turning point had nothing to do with me at all. Is Lobert drew a Tithing Blade, which made Hive sacrifice Wilson, which had Snake Umbra and Armadillo Cloak and protection from white with a Benevolent Blessing.
Oh, and they never got to swing with it. That's
They
right.
they did get a swing with it at least once, but they didn't get to swing it at me. Yeah, and knocking all of those auras off and resetting Wilson wound up being hugely beneficial to me. Just because I'm not sure that I can race a Wilson with an Armadillo Cloak. I can ping a whole bunch, but they're just going to keep gaining that life back. And Lobert being able to take out the bear was huge. Yeah.
And then trying to get through the Ward 2 and the protection spell that's inevitable,
Yes. Yeah, with the Benevolent Blessing giving it protection from white, not knocking off the Armadillo Cloak because that's how Benevolent Blessing is worded. But like I had a crib swap in the deck somewhere, I had a generous gift. Like there were things I could use to kill the bear, but were not there were not a lot of outs once it had protection from white. So the edict was was really good for me.
Perfect. Yeah.
Yeah.
Righteous. Well, we're sitting at about 50 minutes. God, man, time travels when you're
absolutely.
it flies when you're having fun. So, Lorehold Apprentice, is this one of those you are known for like sustained development of your lists? Is this one of those that's going to go in the catalog of lists that you just going to keep honing and honing and honing and honing?
I do really like it. And as I mentioned before, and you mentioned, as more pingers get printed, as more good spirits get printed, fingers crossed for a Midnight Haunting downshift, that card would be an auto
Bonkers.
include in this deck. Yeah. As things keep getting printed, the deck's only going to get better. And if pingers keep having their place in the meta,
Mm.
I think it's a good place to be. There's definitely some cards that, having played it in the tournament, I think I would swap for something else. So that's, once you once you take it to the big stage, there's always those things that are like, yep, I don't like that card as much. And I've been talking with other people in the community too, who have suggested other things that I found to be very helpful.
Yeah,
And I love
worthy
that.
of
That's one
trying.
of my favorite things. Yeah, that's one of my favorite things about making the videos and the content creation is getting comments from people who are like, "Hey, did you consider this?" Or, "Let me show you my list that's similar to yours, and like let's compare notes on those things." Like
Mhm.
that's so helpful for the development of these decks. And like Lorehold Apprentice, it's kind of like quote unquote my deck. I built it, but like it's the community's deck now. Like I played it, and it's only gonna people are gonna iterate on it, take it out of my hands, and make it so much better.
That's
So
the beautiful thing about
yeah,
art, right? Yeah.
yeah,
Give it to the world, let it become its own thing. Okay,
yeah,
so David Sanctuary for Lorehold Apprentice. Doing my intel.
yeah, yeah,
Now,
yeah.
not Joe, we talked about RIW last year. For those of you who don't know, RIW is happening again this year, July 27th. I'll be there. David will be
I'll,
there.
I'll be there. Yeah, for sure.
So if you can afford to make the trip, like last year, I had the opportunity of getting an Airbnb last year. I won't be able to do that this year because for whatever reason, there's like a 200% price increase between. Yeah,
Oh,
it's
yeah.
ridiculous. So I'll be staying at a hotel. But I mean, there's going to be lots of opportunities to play Magic, lots of opportunities to hang out with people that you see online, to include this young man right here. Yeah, if you can make the trip, it's probably one of the PDH specific destinations. It's the only one at the moment. At the moment,
Yeah,
But
yeah.
yeah,
Um,
it was a good time.
yeah. It was a blast last year, and RIW puts on an excellent event. Uh, there's a free taco bar, so you'll get fed in between rounds. They're really lovely people, all the staff and the local community, just wonderful people. And that's not even including the online PDH community, all those people that will inevitably show up. And yeah, it's an incredible event, really great store, and hope to see you all there.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So as we close this out, I was going to say, I was going to put you on the spot and say, give me 3 commanders that you're looking at, but I won't do that to you. Give me one not previously mentioned, because we talked about flicker combos and that's the old life where we've moved past that. We're looking at pinger strats and all of that, maybe even
Yeah.
some control strats. Give me one non-Lorehold Apprentice commander that excites you.
Yeah. Let me pull up my
Uh-oh.
Mox field real quick, make sure I'm not missing anybody. Um, see here. Bobby showed me this really pretty intriguing trophy mage list that uses Trophy Mage to tutor up Ashnod's Altar and do the Ashnod's Altar combo thing. So like having a tutor in the command zone has some blink spells to like also reset, go grab the workshop assistant as well, also with 3-drop. Haven't played a game with it, but the deck looks really sweet. And as I'm getting more, into the format again, I think I'm going to try out this Trophy Mage list. It seems really cool. I really love decks like this. So that'll be the deck I leave you with. Trophy Mage. Rafa, Rapha, is the person that originally built the list, so you can check them out on Moxfield. But yeah, Trophy Mage. That's the deck I'll leave you with.
No, sweet. No, you're the first person that I asked the question like this, and I felt compelled to do so because we've delved deep into the mind of you, trying to get your thought processes, your how you study the game I think is really critical because it's a very unique perspective on studying the game. So this is just one more piece of information that seeks to establish the portfolio of you. So for those folks, I study people, obviously. So whereas others might study the game like you do, okay, in that alignment, they'll either find confirmation, or if there is non-alignment, like me, I'm going to be looking at specifically waiting for that video to come out, looking at like, oh, okay, this is what I can learn as an enfranchised grinder as well of the format, because I think you would agree, there is no terminal date for learning. Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah. So that's what I'm interested in, is other people taking you and looking at your, I was going to say escapades. It's been a long day. I've had a 10-hour day at work again. Yeah. But yeah, so yeah, I think we rightly accomplished that. I think you still owe me a selfie. As we close this out, you have anything for the people? Are you on Twitter, or you're definitely on Discord? We mentioned your YouTube, which will be linked in the description. Any other components of that you'd like to put out there to the peeps?
Yeah, mostly just the YouTube. It's Ankylosaur MTG, and again that'll be down in the video description. But yeah, I thank you so much for having me. This was a blast talking to you, and I'm glad that I finally got to do a winner's interview with you. Yeah, very exciting.
A long time coming.
Yeah, I've gotten close a few times, but it was really nice to get the win. Yeah.
You made me think of like if you take down Sanctuary and we do this again, I'm going to have to come up with a new format for a second time winner. I've never had to do that. So
yeah,
hopefully it's you.
I would love that. Yeah.
Sweet. All right. Until the next time, folks, I'm going to hit the stop button. Let David get on to what, probably more playtesting or doing whatever it is that
or grinding.
Right on. All right, folks, we'll catch you on the flip.